that locally that was the biggest story. Locally, the biggest story came out it came out on Friday afternoon on a variety of platforms, but it was that Brian Noland was going to stay as the president at ETSU. He wasn't going to leave Tennessee to be the chancellor. And it's done at a time, I guess, where a lot of opinion making. So you release something like that, and evidently he had taken his name out on Thursday. Tennessee instead hired a person from Nebraska, as a matter of fact. Her name, let's go. She came from academic department. She was chief academic officer at Nebraska. Brian Noland is more known for, his fundraising abilities. But anyway, Donde Plowman is the name of the person who will be the next chancellor at Tennessee. And so to ETSU fans, they couldn't care less if the baseball team is dropping like a brick, or that the basketball team's being dismantled, or that no Bucks are selected in the NFL draft, or even taken as a free agent. It wasn't that the softball team, they've got a losing record. Women's basketball, they struggled. And it doesn't matter because Brian Noland is staying as the president of ETSU. It's almost like that old scene, Newt Rockney All-American. Geez, we lost the game. Who cares about that? We got you, coach. Cheer, cheer for old Notre Dame. You remember that one? Okay. So the fans are ecstatic because they look at Noland as the person that transformed ETSU athletics, got them back in the Southern Conference, restored football, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're right about that. And college presidents are highly influential on the path that college programs take. It's a highly influential whatever department they have, opening up various schools, whatever, the pharmacy school under Paul Stanton. I'm going to get to that in a little. But normally, most fan bases, when they talk about the athletic director, or the coaches or something, here they talk about the president a lot. Because, ETSU, in a lot of their fans' memory, did drop football just 15 years ago. I once interviewed Todd Stansbury. He was the athletic director at ETSU early part of the century. Now he's at Georgia Tech. He left ETSU to take a position at Oregon State, join their athletic staff. He was not the athletic director initially. He later became the Beavers athletic director. But when I talked to him, it was for basically an enterprise series in Sports Talk where we discussed, the circumstances surrounding football, which had just been cut at ETSU. So this is some time ago. But, Oregon State might have been the worst college football program in all of major college football once upon a time. But then Todd Stansbury got there, and the baseball team started to win. They won back-to-back College World Series. They're the defending national champ in baseball. And this was an era, although Stansbury wasn't there when this happened, it was an era in which Dennis Erickson was the football coach at Oregon State, and they were routing Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. 41-9. Remember that, 2000? Maybe you don't if you're not of age, but yeah. So Oregon State was becoming actually a premier college football program at the time, and Todd Stansbury was leaving a sinking ship with her cutting football to go to this program that was just a few years off of a Pac-12 title. And I said, please don't tell me that, it's because we work hard here or something like that. Please tell me how Oregon State got to be. And he pointed to the former college president, who actually was there before he was, but his name was Paul Risser. He'd been a professor at Oklahoma. He'd been a botany professor at Oklahoma, but he had been around the University of Orleans, the University of Oklahoma, or for that matter, all their athletic programs mean there. So even someone who had been a botany professor at Oklahoma realized, you know what, we're here to win, and I'm going to make sure that that happens. And he understood the importance winning athletic programs can have at a university. Few, like I said, fans point to the success of their athletic programs and link them to the president the way ETSU fans do. And again, usually, like I said, just to repeat myself, Usually they mope about the athletic director isn't so hot. What kind of a decision did the coach make? That sort of thing. President is a guy watching a game from a luxury box, and the president is somebody that, well, we hope that he leaves the athletics to the athletic director and he cares about the academic side. At ETSU, I'm not saying that, the academics obviously he does, but his role with the athletic programs are much more talked about. And I think part of that also is that Noland really identifies himself with athletics. I mean, he's a real rah-rah guy. Southern Conference tournament last month in Nashville. I talked about this. How many college presidents, along with their AD, are going to be on the court with 4 minutes left against one team, and they're holding up placards and signs and leading cheers at the cheerleaders? I mean, a lot of college presidents and ADs would say that's beneath me. There's an argument that said that, yeah, Noland and, for that matter, Scott Carter should believe that that's beneath them, but it works around here. For what a lot of this is that this fan base in East Tennessee would rather hear rah-rah than constructive criticism a lot. Many ETSU fans all football and then going through 3 good athletic directors, first 6 years of his presidency, then finally settling on a tennis coach to run the department, presumably for stability. And so the Bucks were then kicked to the curb, remedial conference, Atlantic Sun, Snead, softball, stadium. They were always behind schedule, and the teams didn't reap the benefits of building new programs. Usually you build a new programs, team starts to win. Softball just kept losing after a new facility was built. Baseball, not much of a shot in the arm. And this was a guy, Stanton, who, remember, he tried to bring back football in 2007. There's a famous press conference. We're going to get it done. We're at the 1-yard line, 99 yards to go. We're going to get it done. I remember an interview with David Mullins, the athletic director, after this. Hey, what you going to do? And his answer was not answering. People love this university. That's a nothing statement. Might as well have been saying that over my dead body. Beano Cook once said that college presidents aren't real people. You think of him, you think of a guy wearing a pipe, smoking a pipe, the sport jacket with the, only he wears a bow tie, and he's got the blue plaid blazer with the gold slacks on. I mean, it's nobody is going to dress that. Anybody else, it's going to be, boy, oh boy, are you goofy. And there it might be a little bit of that there, but here's the deal. Because of that, they associate Noland, they associate him with, what's his accomplishment? Building a football stadium. Paul Stanton, what's his accomplishment? Building a pharmacy school. Say what you will, but that building a football stadium is a lot more fun and it gets a lot more exposure. And it's also why even fans upset with Stanton's decisions on athletics wouldn't criticize him. In some communities, for instance, when the college president drops football, he's met with scorn, he's run out of town. I used to go to meetings and they would talk about how awesome Paul Stanton was. The prevailing attitude was a pharmacy school is more important than a football team, so he improved the education of the university. And then Stanton was elected to a seat in local government when he left for ETSU. It's like Art Modell being elected the mayor of Cleveland. It also really doesn't speak that well of this. It also meant in defending Stanton, one had to pit one program at ETSU against another. Say what you will about Noland, he hasn't done that. And since he's going to remain at ETSU, the local spin is that he couldn't possibly have lost the search out to Donde Plowman, chief academic officer at Nebraska, who was chosen to be Tennessee's next chancellor, including over one candidate, William Tate, who, by the way, is now up for the presidency at the University of South Carolina. He came from Washington University in St. Louis, very prestigious academically, but that's something to watch right there. What happens if a guy that Tennessee either passed over or maybe Tate wanted to go to South Carolina, not Tennessee? Why? I mean, something to look for. But instead, it wasn't he didn't get the job. It was he decided to stay. I actually got a press release from Bristol Motor Speedway in my inbox, and it said, here's our statement about Brian Noland staying as the president at ETSU. Again, I don't know if at Talladega they're putting out press releases saying we're so happy that what was the man's name? It was I'm trying to remember now. William, was it Langford? It was the Auburn candidate, a candidate from Auburn. Well, he didn't take his name out of consideration officially, but there's no press release that I'm aware of from Talladega. We're so happy that this administrator will stay at Auburn. You don't have that. And you do around here, and that's kind of like ETSU's Sports Information Department releasing a press release about Kyle Busch or something like that. I mean, it was a bit odd. The idea was that at the last minute, listen to me, Freudian slip. Brian Noland got his name from consideration at the UT Post. Now, such a statement of Noland withdrawing his candidacy is meant to combat the inferiority, and you hear it. I still read it in... it's only a matter of time before Steve Forbes leaves. Never mind the fact that next year he'll be 55, and quite frankly, major college basketball programs don't like you when you're that old. What about Rick Barnes? Well, he'd done it at a high level. He'd been number 1 in the country for a month. It wasn't that he had won one or been to the NCAAs once in 4 years. Say ETSU goes next year, twice in 5. I mean, what's that all about? Come on. And I do think also with the departures the basketball team has had, it seems more likely that, ETSU will probably have a good team next year. Certainly they'll contend for the Southern Conference Championship. They're not the slam dunk favorite that they once were. Still, Anyway, such a statement, Noland withdrawing his candidacy, it's meant to combat that inferiority complex at ETSU. Really, the Tri-Cities as, remember the old political tag and all this, the folks in Nashville forget East Tennessee has parts in it past Knoxville, or whatever it is, they would say. So you're saying he's deciding to stay at ETSU. Okay, he's deciding to turn down a $200,000 a year pay cut and go to the school that he got his PhD at. I'm not buying it. I got to tell you, I think that, he probably got wind that he wasn't going to be the hire, and so he pulled his name out. I'm recalling now David Brinkley. Yeah, David Brinkley. And remember when President Bill Clinton was reelected in 1996. Brinkley had this to say about it. We all look forward with great pleasure to 4 more years of inspiring speeches full of wit, poetry, music, love, and affection, plus more goddamn nonsense. And Brinkley, that was the quote of the 96 election. Remember that? And he had, Brinkley got a lot of attention for that. I think he eventually apologized to Bill Clinton for it, if memory serves and all this. But I get that. We all look forward to great pleasure with inspiring speeches full of wit, poetry, music, love, and affection, plus more goddamn nonsense. Yes, the hot gold ball games with, us hearing the athletic director, this is the greatest promotion we've ever had because babies are crawling across the floor. I get, that's ETSU. No matter what the situation is, everything is fantastic, if not stupendous. Even in the midst of a 37-game losing streak, Here, the football team is losing a lot of people, and what happens, we're all happy. Who got ETSU back in the Southern Conference is staying, Newt Rockney All-America said at the start of the show, we just lost the game. Who cares? We got you, Rock. Cheer, cheer for old Notre Dame. So that's what we have right now at ETSU. It's going to continue because Noland is staying. The wit, poetry, music, love, affection, and yes, GD nonsense. I just want to know how he's going to change the inferiority complex, because I do not think that the Tri-Cities should have an inferiority complex to Knoxville one way. I mean, say what you will. I do think that sports are the best way for that inferiority complex to go away. Hear me out. Packers make sure that Green Bay, Wisconsin isn't an in Milwaukee. The Thunder make sure nobody thinks of Tulsa before they think of Oklahoma City. Nobody would ever have heard of Bristol if it weren't for the Speedway. Bristol would be in Connecticut. Not, well, is it in Tennessee or Virginia? Both? Well, that's the difference. Yeah, that sort of thing. All I'm asking is this: could men's basketball do for ETSU what it's done for Gonzaga and Wichita State? And I think that's a challenge for Noland, and it's how ETSU can stand on its own instead of its current being a stepping stone. Hey, I'm Marky Billson. I tell it like it is. This is the home of real sports talk, not cheerleaders. NFL draft talk, we'll be doing that. SoCon John Hooper, bottom of the next hour. And we're going to talk about, what is the status of Southern Conference football? No NFL players drafted out of the SoCon. Can you believe it? No players drafted. Tri-City Sports Now.
If you love strawberries, come and celebrate the strawberry season and enjoy